development, improvement, by whatever name it's progress, and progress means change. The landscape lies littered with the evidence of the march of progress and time. As we take a closer look at these visible manifestations of change, we ask ourselves what's worth saving. Hi, I'm Bill Landry. Welcome to Heartland Tonight.
It's the best of the Heartland Series with Bill Landry on Heartland Tonight.
Tennessee is calling, rolling hills all dressed in green. Hear the Heartland calling like an Appalachian spring. Smoky Mountain night is falling. The Heartland's calling me, calling me.
What do we save and what do we sacrifice to progress? All too often we avoid that difficult question until time makes the decision for us. Tonight, renovation projects large and small. Native grasses make a fiery return to the landscape. And Howard Armstrong journeys home. Downtowns were once alive with activity, bustling centers of commerce. In downtown Knoxville, perhaps no place epitomized the pulse of commerce more than the Miller's department store. It was a cornerstone of progress.
The magic word was Miller's. It was the focal point of Knoxville.
It was a feeling as much as a place. For Miller's department store was East Tennessee's grand shopping palace. Miller's captured the boomtown vitality that was Knoxville at the turn of the 20th century and beyond. Some believe the building dominating the corner of Gay and Union may have that effect again. Evelyn Crowell recalls the prestige of Miller's when she started there in 1932.
Well, I was so excited to have a job at Miller's, so pleased, and I was at the best place. Oh, honey, they were selling everything from a spool of thread to the best coconut cake. They were famous for coconut cake. And finest first.
Two Miller's brothers from Chattanooga constructed the store in 1905, a showpiece with elaborate architectural details, some a bit surprising, statues that symbolically held up the building. But the Miller's building wasn't so different for its time. What's the significance of those arched windows?
That was just the style of architecture at the particular time, that as the building came up from the ground up to the top, it became a bit more detailed and more formal. And you'll notice in a number of the buildings that they use lions. This really represents strength.
Strong business enabled Miller's to build another building in 1911. In the 1930s came a sleek Art Deco marble addition.
You could look down and see people on the street. They would see the streets were full then, and it was so crowded that you couldn't hurry. And going to town was just like, well, going to New York or something for the locals.
Miller's delivered the latest in fashion, even down to the escalators, installed in '47, the first in East Tennessee.
Oh, people would be standing waiting when the store opened.
But Knoxville suffered the fate of many cities. Downtown itself fell out of fashion. Suburban malls lured crowds with the new, the latest. Miller's on Gay closed in 1973. An updating of the building encased it in a glass cocoon.
They created a glass box, but when they did that, where the steel structure is fastened to the building, it damaged a lot of the architectural elements.
Perhaps it was its glorious past, or maybe the time was right. But renovation was begun by the city in 1998, banking that the past would be a springboard for the future.
When you go downtown, you see your heritage. It also reminds us of the kinds of crafts and skills that we as a country once had. When you think about the people that worked on this building, the brick masons, people that sculpted all these pieces, those are kinds of art that are almost lost today. In looking at the photographs from different buildings downtown, we had a lot of beautiful buildings, we had a lot of beautiful architecture that said something about our culture, said something about our traditions, said something about our heritage in terms of who we are.
The Miller's building, cherished in the hearts of East Tennesseans, has returned. The same and different. and soon to be headquarters of Knoxville Utilities Board. Some think that it's more a downtown awakening, fitting for a place born on the leading edge. Later, we'll take a closer look at the Millers building. But coming up next, native grasses make a comeback.
For nesting material.
The preservation of our past is important to people in our area. Saving old buildings is one way that can be achieved. Jonesboro is a shining example of a town that has kept history alive instead of condemning it to the pages of books. But while some cities win their struggle for preservation, others continue to fight in what seems to be a losing battle. This is where James Agee's house once stood. The home was destroyed years ago and a piece of history lost forever. So what are our priorities? How do we decide which structures are of value to us now and in the future? Preservation is a battle that will be fought for many years to come. But hopefully, the struggle will make losing pieces of history like these a thing of the past. Wildfire. Beyond the fear it conjures, fire offers a tool for rebirth. At Hiawassee College, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency uses this tool to help some native plants make a comeback. A sea of grass, like that of the prairie. It is a delicious enticement to hungry animals. Native Americans knew this. They knew that fire would renew the grass and would hunt the game when it came to feed on the new growth. What is old becomes new again. Hardy native grasses are again sprouting up in our region. This time a project of Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency.
They're switchgrass, big blue stem, and Indian grass. When white man came to this country, he found the eastern forests not totally unbroken. They were broken by natural meadows, by fields that the Indians had created, and what they were trying to get to grow in the fields were these warm season grasses because they were so palatable.
Dick Conley of TWRA calls them warm season grasses because they grow best during the hottest months of the year. In Tennessee, they'll get up to 8 feet tall, perfect for wildlife.
It's clumpy. It's a bunch grass. And you'll see these little travel lanes in between the clumps. Well, that makes it ideal for quail, rabbits to get through and to be protected. A quail hen will bring her brood into an area like this to feed on insects and also to escape predation. Well, this clump right here, for example, is Indian grass. The seeds are very good food for birds or small mammals. The forage is excellent for deer or cattle.
Native grasses were overtaken by aggressive ones, introduced by European settlers. TWRA is hoping some farmers will replant the original species.
A farmer, if he's interested in hay production or grazing, he could plant this and it would be productive for him during the hot summer months. As much forage and stems as you see above the ground, that's how much is below the ground.
An extensive root system means that the grass can withstand destruction caused by fire.
There are fire-loving species. They do work very well in fire. If you're burning, if anyone's burning, the person that is using the fire should be experienced with it. As I said, once you set a fire, you can't call it back. Burning is a very good tool to use because it recycles nutrients, it kills a lot of undesirable vegetation, and it stimulates a lot of desirable vegetation for wildlife. Let's move just a little bit faster.
As fires go, this is a safe one.
The Tennessee Division of Forestry put a fire lane around the field forest as an extra precaution. The fire will burn up to that fire lane and stop.
Within days, new grass sprouts from the purified ground. The balance of nature reset for another season. Blades of switchgrass, big blue stem, and Indian grass are glimpses into the past. One day they may spark new growth on the landscape of Tennessee. We'll head to Cataloochee when Heartland Tonight returns. The restoration crew of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park faced a daunting task when assigned the reconstruction of the Cook Cabin in Cataloochee. For beyond the physical structure, they were restoring memories.
I was born over there in that old cookhouse in Cataloochee, little Cataloochee. Well, it's just an old rough house, log house. That's where I was born.
It's been said that Daniel Cook built cabins so well you couldn't fit a sheet of paper between the joints. A neighbor's cabin still shows his artist's touch. In the mid-'70s, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park dismantled and stored his 1856 cabin. Now his old home place will emerge from memory thanks to a grant from Log Cabin Syrup. And it starts by re-clearing the land.
Cataloochee was the biggest settlement in the park at the time of about 1910. There were about 1,300 people that lived in Little Cataloochee and Big together.
The separate identities of Little Cataloochee and Big Cataloochee comes from more than geographical separation. A fundamental difference distinguishes between the two valleys.
One is a Methodist and one a Baptist. I'll tell you that. They come visit our church, and we'd go over there and visit theirs.
The hills of Cataloochee were suited for growing apples. The sweet smell of apples stored in the Messer apple house would drift across the road to the Cook cabin.
Well, it was a first for the complete ground-up restoration of a building. Used some of the old logs that was in the cabin and had to use a lot of new logs, too, to go in. They had to make new logs and use the old ones with it.
For the construction crew, it becomes more than putting one log on top of another. There's a reminder that someone lived in this cabin.
We could tell from the length of the log and 196 3/4. And the newspaper been on the inside where they went.
I'll tell you, it's papered with catalogs, Sears and Roebuck catalogs or some kind that they put paste on them, and it made it look light and clean in there, too. It had two porches, one on the front side and then one on the back. Everybody sit on that porch. I bet there wasn't one on Cataloochee but what'd sit on that porch. It was about the oldest house there was. Just be sitting there talking. I wasn't big enough to listen to everything, you know. I saw lots of people get kissed on that porch.
But it's going to look pretty much like it did in its original state when it was here and people lived in it.
I'll take one section. One, two, three.
The Park Service unveils the completed cabin at a recent Little Cataloochee homecoming.
Yeah, I liked it then, but now I wouldn't want to go back over there.
It might not be home now, but it remains a place of the heart. You can almost smell the apples on the breeze.
It was a nice place to live. Good people.
A comparison of the Cook cabin and the Miller's building seems futile. One small and unassuming, the other massive and powerful. But take a closer look. It is in the small details that both structures shine. Renovation of the old Miller's building in Knoxville is nearly finished. The goal was to restore the almost century-old building, actually a group of 3 buildings, to form a grandeur and create a top-class office building. For that, architects and engineers used research, fortunate coincidences, and a modern approach to preserving history.
And this is one of the original torsos from the building.
Remodeling in the 1980s tore off the building's distinct architectural details. Parts were rescued from the junkyard by watchful preservationists.
These two were actually at the museum, and there's another torso that we found in a garden from someone here in Knoxville, and then another individual was able to salvage one of the heads.
The statues of the ladies were painstakingly recreated by architectural reproductions.
We went through several review periods where we actually looked to say the arms needed to be a little stronger, the hands needed to look a little different. And once that mold was made and approved, then a rubber casting was made.
In another interesting twist, other pieces of the architectural puzzle were provided by a salvage operator who collected cast-offs from the first remodeling job.
The person that that all the material was being taken to actually took off the cornice back in the 70s and said that he thought he had a couple of the lion's heads and the rosettes.
All of the pieces were then recreated in fiberglass, an easier handling, more durable material than the original.
As you go around the building, you'll see all the original details from the outside were recreated on the interior part of the building also. This is the main entrance going into the building. One of the things that we did is we created an atrium space on the center. This is a 7-story space.
Steve Heatherly's crew at Johnson & Gallion cut through tons of brick to create the opening. The roof was entirely off for a while.
We cut a hole 40 feet wide, 60 feet long, 7 stories straight out the roof. And from that allowed us to drop a crane down here and put our elevator shaft in.
What we wanted to do was to recreate a large open space in the interior so that we could get a lot of natural light to the offices on the interior side.
The Market Square entrance to the old Miller's building provides a huge surprise. Look closely, and you will see that in reality the brick is but a painting.
That's a flat surface. That's actually the back side of the building. That's all in one plane, all the brick. And this is what's called a trompe-l'oeil.
A trompe-l'oeil.
Trompe-l'oeil, which means fool the eye.
The surprise within the surprise, created by artist Byron Peck, is the reflection in the painting.
He began to do research and came up with the idea of why not paint the old Market Square building as a reflection in the windows, because the old Market Square building, of course, used to sit right here in the center of Market Square.
In time, there will be a small park between the Market Square and the old Miller's building, a bridge between old and new.
If you look at where we are today as a society, one of the things we do is we judge ourselves by our past and where we've been. I mean, it's a piece of history. It's an actual visual piece of history that we have.
A building preserved will serve to remind of what has been and what can be. Yet one building does not make a city. That will be judged by where we go from here. The renovation of the Miller's building illustrates the old maxim that what is old is made new again. Whether it helps spur the revival of downtown remains to be seen, but no doubt the building stands on the threshold of the future. Everything has periodic highs and lows, so it's no surprise that what's down will eventually return to the top. Such was the case of Howard Armstrong, when he was rediscovered in a period of renewed interest in the blues. Listen to the music of East Tennessee. Many styles meet in this musical melting pot. The dedication of a mural in the old city brings many in that musical stew home, among them Howard Armstrong. Born in 1909, Howard is the product of the ethnic mixture of La Follette's coal camps. There he picked up German, Italian, and Polish. This fusion of influences carried over to the music he played: jazz, jigs, waltzes, minstrel tunes, rags, country, blues. After years of playing music with his brothers around La Follette, Howard came to Knoxville. He found the corner of Jackson and Central hopping when he arrived in the 1920s. Here he began a lifelong musical partnership with Ted Bogan and Carl Martin.
When I was here,
I didn't have a hard time. I didn't have time to think of hate, prejudice, and all that stuff. I played songs that people wanted to hear, black and white, and went on about my business.
The search for a wider audience led to Chicago and beyond.
We played all over, most everywhere, you know, and we did skipping, you know, skipping is street talk for street musicians. See. When we went with the instrument or something, we treated just like royalty.
Along the way, Howard acquired the nickname Louie Bluey to distinguish him from another musical Armstrong, the jazz great Louis Armstrong. When show bookings slowed, he retired to a 9-to-5 life. But he was rediscovered during a blues resurgence in the 1970s. Howard's now known as a blues musician, but his variety of music makes him more than that.
I remember one time that white people would not listen to blues. You know, it was kind of a down step for you if you were black and played blues, go low down dirty blues. But now, man, anybody plays blues for us. We used to call him Buck, you know. And
a homecoming to La Follette brings a reunion with family. And it also brings back the tragic memory of a younger brother.
And the train was waiting there, just a freight train, see? But the passenger train was coming down to the station that used to be around here, but it's gone now. And it was highballing, so Tommy started across the track and just in time to get hit, 11 years old. And I was 13. Don't you let no fast talking, Mama.
Don't let no fast talking
man. Fool out of me. They just told me too late, that was all.
No, that's right.
That's a low down blues. That's a low down dirty blues.
Put me in the alley.
Yes, Lordy. The way I speak it from my little pea head, you can say words with music, or you can say things, should I say, that inspires attitudes that words cannot put into action. You know what I mean? It's a kind of a magic that is hard to define.
Within us all, there are places where we save the things precious to us. See you next week.